Welcome to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad. Settle in. We're about to make you feel really good. Welcome back to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad, and today we're going to be talking to a true coaching master in the Coaching Master series about something that might be relevant to your life, and it's alcohol. I'm sorry to say that this may be a triggering topic for some people, but if it's already starting to make you squirm, you really need to listen in. And in general, I really love a deep dive into a hyper-focused or hyper niche in the coaching discipline that might be illuminating in all other directions, as often happens. My guest today is the one, the only, Amanda Kuda. She is a coach, speaker, and the author of Unbottled Potential, which is a life-changing guide to living alcohol-free, to manifesting success, and to stepping into the extraordinary. Through her coaching, podcast, and programs, Amanda helps high achievers, like all of our audience, to renegotiate their mindset around drinking so they can access the clarity, the creativity, and the spiritual connection that alcohol suppresses. What I love about her work is that it serves such a well-defined swath of people and such a well-defined niche, but also that in the spirit of coaching, it's really not about the addiction. The focus is on the wellness and the healing and the alignment. Welcome to the Coach Podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda.
Thank you, Keren. I am so excited to chat with you today.
Me too. And another Austinite too.
Yes.
So it's
it
great.
just popped around the corner.
We're all together in our hometown.
Yes.
It's when you came in, I was like, do you like the view? And you were like, I live here.
Yes. I live here, but we were talking about this is where my transformation happened just a few blocks from here, where I realized that I no longer wanted to be a party girl anymore. I had something deeper to explore. So this is a kismet conversation right in the heart of where I started to transform.
Right here on Rainy Street. And for anyone who's ever been on Rainy Street, I think they already know where we're going with this. So let's begin at the beginning.
Yes.
Talk to me through the, I guess, young and rebellious years, early, Amanda, through the transformation that brought you to this work.
Yes. Well, I want to start by saying, I think this is an important conversation for anyone who feels that their drinking is super normal. There's nothing extraordinary about the story of my relationship with alcohol. I started drinking in my late teens because I thought that's what everyone was doing, and I wanted to fit in. I wanted to just be like everyone else. And the magic behind that, of course, that we'll always get to is you weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to be a mystical, magical unicorn. And I didn't know that. I forgot that somewhere along the way. I just wanted to be like the popular and cool girls at my high school. And so I switched sleepovers for basement parties, and that just felt like the thing to do. And I realized when I started drinking alcohol that it was this, in my mind, this magic elixir that allowed me to come out of my shell, that allowed me to be outgoing and gregarious and be the person who I thought was my best self. And so I carried that version of me through college, and again, normal relationship with alcohol, partying and going out, sometimes binge drinking, but nothing unusual, nothing concerning. When I went to grad school, I tamed that back quite a bit because grad school was really intense and I needed more space and time. And then when I started my corporate career, I was, picturing that I would be this young Carrie Bradshaw, and I lived in the Midwest, by the way, so it was my own twisted version of that. But I thought that to be glamorous, and to be an adult woman, you should go out and have martinis and go to happy hour and have wine. And I just had this very, glamorized, pardon me. I just had this very glamorized and romanticized view of what alcohol was.
Yeah.
And again, just nothing spectacular about that relationship. And somewhere along the way, actually, it was my 20th birthday, I got introduced to a spiritual teacher. And he was a massage therapist by trade, but he was a Reiki master, and he did all of this wonderful spiritual healing work. And I lived in the Bible Belt of the Midwest at the time. So everything that I was presented when it came to religion was very extreme, very specific. And he showed me this other way of understanding the world. And immediately after having sessions with him, I would go home and binge the spiritual books that he would recommend to me. I was watching Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. I really craved for this life that I was learning about, but I didn't understand what I needed to do to actually achieve it. So what I thought was the right thing to do was to have balance. So Monday through Friday, I was meditating, I was manifesting, I was journaling, I was doing all the spiritual and wellness things. And then Friday at 5:00, because I deserved to and I needed to, because I was so stressed out, I was so overworked, I was so whatever, I would basically just binge drink throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
So it was mindful to mindless.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is that was no kind of balance. And I was really struggling because I had built so much of my persona around this drinking woman, this, young Carrie Bradshaw type, that I figured I just needed to get out of it. And so I ended up manifesting an opportunity 10 years ago to move here to Austin. And I thought, wow, this is going to be it. I just need to get into a new space and then I can be the new Amanda. And of course, you've heard the philosophy, wherever you go, there you are. So I get plopped into Austin, and I think that it's a town of, I have no idea why I'm moving here or what I'm about to experience. I barely spent any time here. And I think it's a wellness mecca where people just do yoga all the time. It's a hippie town is what I've heard of Austin. Yeah. I didn't realize
it was a hippie town for very rich tech people.
Yes.
Sure.
All of this young tech people with money to blow and time on their hands. And so I got sucked right back into that young professional see and be seen crowd. And I'm out on Rainy Street, partying it up, living it up. And I did that for about a year before I realized, wow, I can't be the version of the person who I want to be if I keep doing this. It's impossible. But I thought, you know what? I don't have a problem though. I'm not an alcoholic. So maybe I'll just cut back. Well, I tried that several times and it didn't work. And so in January 2017, I decided I'm so curious about this. I have to give it a go. And this is 10 years ago. No one was talking about some of the words that we'll use today, which is like the sober curious and being alcohol free. This was an extreme radical concept for me and for many people back then. But I just decided to rip off, I don't like to say the Band-Aid because it's more extreme, like the wax strip. If you think of the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin where they rip the wax strip off his chest, that was the level of pain and fear that I felt when I just decided to make this decision to quit drinking alcohol. And I thought, I'll do this for 30 days and see where it goes. And 30 days turned into 90 turned into 6 months, 6 months into a year. And it's been almost 9 years and I haven't had a sip of alcohol. And my life has never been more extraordinary and miraculous.
That's fantastic. High five, buddy.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you. That's a huge thing. There are a couple of things I want to underline. Perhaps you weren't a diagnosed or clinical alcoholic, but you were an addict. Because anyone who has a tremendous hard time quitting something, in my book, is addicted to something. For example, that's how I realized, and I know it's not an APA recognized addiction, but shopping was an addiction for me. Because if I went cold turkey for 30 days, then I literally had anxious feeling around and craving around shopping. In other words, to fill the time. And by the way, that brings me to my second comment. Sex in the City is a cultural piece of garbage that made an enormously harmful impact on so many of our lives. I today can see it because I'm a full grown woman. By the time I reached their age on the show, which was in my late 30s, I was like, these are infantile people. They're not even women. They are children. They're glamorizing sweaters being kept in their oven. They are not capable of financial independence, but they're also encouraging incredibly bad habits, such as shopping and drinking irresponsibly. Anything that's out of control, I hope that anyone can feel it. And anything that you have the courage to admit, I don't know that I can just quit this cold turkey, is in fact an addiction. I talk about that in my book, Gilded, by the way. I say, listen, if you're having a little trouble with it, you definitely have a bit of a difficult relationship to it. So it's really good to just become aware of this. And it's also amazing what you did, which was, I'm going to try and see what my life is like without this. And then I'm going to see how long I can go without it. According to Charles Duhigg, who wrote The Power of Habit, the 90-day frame is actually more likely to get you to actually cement a new habit. It's not 30 days. And so the fact that you made it there was what made it very likely for you to get here.
And it was my own just intelligence that did that. And I also want to offer a little bit of a shift in perspective too, because I know that the languaging, sometimes we need to be confronted with words like addict, but I think the perception, especially with alcohol, is that in order to quit, you have to be addicted in the basement of some church saying, hey, my name is Amanda, I'm addicted to alcohol. And I think that that's what holds a lot of high achievers back because, we are very high functioning and we are still kicking ass and taking names, for lack of a better word, in our day to day. And I would say that, use whatever terminology feels good to you. But I think that using that terminology sometimes can be really confronting to people who have a normalized relationship with alcohol and don't meet the criteria for addiction. And, I even remember asking my therapist, should I quit drinking? And she goes through the DSM or whatever, things that she does. And she's like, no, I think you're okay. You just cut back a little bit. And so having this feeling in my heart that this thing was impacting me and that it was keeping me from being my best self, and that I wasn't necessarily clinically addicted. I definitely had a dependence and I was using it as a tool. I was really grappling with, do I have to quit because I'm not this thing over here, but there's no path for this other way. And I think that it's really important because a lot of people will say, well, I'm not that. So I don't identify as an addict. So I don't need to quit or I don't need to change. But there's this term
most
called
addicts don't identify as addicts.
Right. Well,
just saying.
True.
Which is why my book opens with a chapter called Admit It, Your Life Isn't as Good as You Think It Is.
It is.
It's a really important thing. I understand the nuance. I love the nuanced language. I enjoy being more gentle around things for people, but I also think that clear is kind.
Yes.
And that's why I qualified what I said by saying, if you, like me, don't think that you have a problem, but then go 30 days and literally exhibit the anxiety of someone who has a problem, you may want to confront that because it is distracting you from living your full and best life.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's basically it. And I always tell my clients, I don't have a horse in the race, man. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if you really want to live free, this is something I would consider.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think that everyone gets to pick their own language.
Yeah.
I think that I just don't want to create barriers to someone. I think clear is kind as well. And I found that though barriers can keep people, for instance, I really admired Gabrielle Bernstein. I was talking with my partner about this morning, and I knew that she had quit drinking, but she'd
also quit other things.
Right. She was addicted to cocaine and alcohol. And I remember my young, naive self reading this and admiring her so deeply. Like she was my North Star in the self-help world. And I just naively was like, well, I'm not addicted to cocaine or alcohol, so I guess I should just keep it up. And I had just had this narrative in my head where that languaging was unproductive for me. And there's a concept introduced by one of my other peers called gray area drinking, where you're drinking kind of in this messy middle that it could edge into qualifying for an addiction, but it hasn't quite yet. And that's a phrase that a lot of people tend to resonate, that you're drinking in this gray area, that it could turn into something more problematic, but it hasn't quite yet. And I just think that we're in a really beautiful place where we can say, hey, you don't have to have a problem for alcohol to be a problem in your life. Yeah. And if that feels good to you, then great. This is an amazing conversation to have.
It is. It's very wonderful to have the qualifiers because I think about really two kinds of impact: the level of impact on your own life, your own productivity, your own sharpness, your own ability to do everything, but also the external costs, which many times are what start to really make people aware of the fact that something is about to move into that gray area or in that gray area and could slip out of control.
Yes.
For example, me, a person who's always made a ton of money, losing all my money, being broke all the time, that's a red flag that you may have a shopping problem. So I'm just letting people know, if your relationships are starting to feel shaky and if you have issues concentrating or sleeping, etc., you may have to pay attention to this.
Yes.
Now, you said that around your 30th birthday, you started to become also inexplicably called to a bigger life. So how does this evolution, not only from sobriety, become a shift into the universe of coaching?
Yeah. So, I had said that I was reading from all of these spiritual teachers and I was admiring Gabrielle Bernstein. And I just knew in my heart that I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to write a book, be speaking on stage, be teaching people in some way. And I had this moment in the shower right around the time I was 30. And I just remember sitting there, I'm washing my hair, and all of a sudden I hear this message from my intuition. And she said, Amanda, I see you doing big things in this world, but I can't see you doing them with alcohol in the picture. And it felt like I had been punched in the gut. I just immediately start sobbing and I get on my knees in the shower and kind of regain my breath because I had never heard something that felt so true. And I just knew that I had something so important that I was supposed to do in my life, and that alcohol was essentially a tool that I was using to stay in my shadow and to keep myself from looking at it. And when I understood that and conceptualized that it wasn't even, actually, to come full circle in our conversation, it wasn't even about having a problem. It was about, I had this huge opportunity that I wasn't able to look at because I was too busy distracting myself and too busy, kind of living in this fog all of the time, that it was my moral imperative that I had to give myself the opportunity to pursue that thing. And I didn't even know what it was at the time. It wasn't even concrete. It was just this pie in the sky idea or dream that I had, that I was meant for something more. And I just knew I had to follow it, which I think even makes it more difficult. If it was something incredibly tangible that I knew the exact next steps, I think it would even have been easier, or even easier if I would have had a deliberate, yes, I know this is a problem, but I just had this very obscure thought that something somewhere out there was meant for me, that I needed to go find it. I think that was a really brave thing to do, to be like, okay, I'm just a little Labrador retriever now going aimlessly out into the world to discover this thing. But it just felt so true in my soul. And I've been able to discover that through not drinking and all of the work I've done on top of that as well.
It's tremendous. For two other things that I'd like to highlight for the listener is, you found your teacher when the truth started to basically resonate with you, because you were looking for answers. And when you're looking for answers, you find somebody who has answers, you will many times be able to click with them. And then you have the second coming of Amanda, which is essentially the realization that something more is out there. And so many people, I think that this is a point at which you're struck by lightning and God hands you tablets with exact instructions of what you are now meant to do.
Oh,
but
would that
it's
be
never
nice?
like that. I love telling people, unlike Martin Luther King, I did not have a dream. It wasn't concise. It wasn't an understanding. But when I was, I think, around 32 or 33, I remember just thinking, I don't think I should die now. So there is something to do. I didn't know what it was, but like you, and being wired too, like a Labrador retriever, I just went, I guess we're going to go find.
Yes, we're just going to sniff it out and see what we find.
And so what did you find? And how did you find? How does the evolution of your spiritual, what becomes your spiritual calling happen?
Yes. So through a lot of trial and error, and also through a lot of miraculous manifestations. We were talking before we got started that we're, and your audience knows, a big fan of two-way magnetic work. And I had started doing
Shout
this
out
work.
to Jessica and Lacey. We love you.
And I had really started to, I didn't know it at the time, but practice manifestation, also through the work of Wayne Dyer and so many of my other teachers. And I started attracting these opportunities without knowing it. And it was just me taking small, curious actions. So I started writing a blog. I started posting on Instagram. And I actually started, oh my gosh, at this time, this was so brave, sharing my face instead of just writing cute little spiritual memes that were going to teach people something. And I ended up the year that I quit drinking, at the very end of that year, I ended up having a short-term romance with this guy who saw something in what I was doing. And he realized, Amanda, you have a method that you went through. You have this process. You have something you need to share. And he just really encouraged me to release like a workbook or something. And that
What a fortuitous McRomance.
Right. And that romance didn't work out. And I know that this person was placed in my world as a gift to plant an idea in my head, to give me a bit of encouragement, as so many people have been, especially romantic partners in my life. And so then I just really boldly started showing my face, teaching, making offers. I had coaching certifications. I had a background in consulting and public speaking and teaching and interpersonal communication. I'd amassed all of these tools that I didn't know what I was supposed to do with them. And all of a sudden he was like, well, isn't it obvious? You've solved this problem for yourself that no one has quite solved yet.
Exactly.
You should teach this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I had a niche. And so I took my certification and all my skills and I started teaching women who have this gray area relationship with alcohol, who are high achievers, who are also on a spiritual path, a spiritually focused way to break up with alcohol.
I just love it. I love the focus so much. I think so much also of what happened during COVID, where the slippage into that gray area became exacerbated for so many of my friends. And what a tremendous thing that you ended up doing. I'm delighted that you met that guy.
Yes, me too. Me as well. And so many just serendipitous people have been plopped into my path since then. And we were talking about, some of the crossovers who we have through friends and colleagues. And I just can't help but smile and looking at all of the people that the universe put in my path to divinely guide me to do what I do better and with more integrity and with more heart and more soul. And I just am so amazed by all of the things that I've attracted when I allowed myself to become more magnetic. And alcohol was the thing that was kind of like keeping me from that magnetism.
I love that you're using this language, but I also encourage the listener to take a moment now to reflect on all of the people who have helped them discover more clearly who they are.
Yeah.
Those people are winks from the universe, and they are just as important as the manifestation of financial reward or of other things that we're a little bit more primed to be seeking. The people that we meet along the way are great fortunes.
Yes.
Before we were chatting before, we were talking about our very beloved mutual friend, Jessica Zweig. I think about this year. This year is 2025. My book launched. I've had a very successful book tour. We're ending the tour now. The podcast, thanks to all of you, has gone beyond my wildest dreams. But the best thing that's happened this year are the people that I met by coincidence along the way, who just gave me a nod and a wink and a push in the right direction, like Jessica, like Jasmine Starr, like Jessica Gillett to be magnetic. These are people who will be my friends for life. And truly, I believe that they are a greater reward, I'm going to get teary, than anything that could have ever happened this year. Thanks for giving those people credit for where you are now.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's, I could sit here and pretend that, and I did do a lot of hard work myself. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. I didn't have a partner during these times where I was, putting myself into a cocoon and trying to emerge as a butterfly. And I didn't have financial help or support. Like I built and bootstrapped everything on my own. And that, gives me a tremendous sense of pride. And the universe plopped teacher after teacher and lesson after lesson in my path as just divine guides. And I could not have done anything that I've done without them. They've offered me, even if just a little flick in the right direction, like the man who I dated.
Yeah.
Like these are guideposts that I would not have seen on my own.
Yeah. It's a breathtaking thing to watch how many similarities we all have.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I believe that there's no coming to consciousness without suffering. Is it fair to say that what you've described is, though? Because I really want to make clear that even though you weren't in the pits of addiction like poor Matthew Perry, for example, was, may he rest in peace, you really did suffer. This was costing you. And you also described the grit of the rise. The creation of businesses like these, I think it looks super glamorous to a lot of people on Instagram.
Was not.
But it is not even a little bit glamorous. It's beastly.
Yes.
And it's really important to say that that's also part of what informs your ability to serve people. You know what they're going through, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, it is. And, I had my own, I like to call it like my pit of despair. It wasn't a rock bottom necessarily, but I think there is nothing more uncomfortable than, and this word has gotten a lot of, flack over the past 5 or 10 years because it has been popularized, but there's nothing worse than the grief of not being your authentic self.
Yes.
And to quote another angel on my journey, in fact, I was driving up this highway, like right behind us right now, with another man who I was dating. And he said something to me. He said, Amanda, this is right before I decided to quit drinking. I feel like when you're talking that some of your answers are calculated. And my little mind received that message and I heard, you're not being your authentic self. And I took that nugget of wisdom that he delivered to me and I was like, I'm going to not to be with him or anything, but for myself, I heard you are not being yourself and that's unfair to the world and that's unfair to you. And that's what I was doing, drinking alcohol. And there was nothing more painful than living in a world where you're being what someone else told you should be or what you and doing what you should do because it's good, right, popular, monetizable, because it has a clear path. And that's what I built my life around. And I know you have a similar story of hitting that, bottom or pit of despair or, transition point where you realize this isn't who I'm supposed to be. It looks good on paper. I'm checking the boxes, but they're not my boxes and it hurts.
Why do you think I was shopping so much?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that you have already exposed us to so many opportunities in which you're observing in yourself the pain that you can now observe in other people. The first thing that all the teachers that have been truly excellent on this podcast have had in common is there is no coming to consciousness without suffering. We come by the work honestly. But the second is because we come by the work honestly, we are also serving honestly. We truly care. And we truly care because we can truly care. Yes. We know what this is like. I understand very well what it's like to be broke. I also understand very well what it's like to control your opinions, calculate your speech, and calculate your appearance so that you can come across as something pleasing to other people rather than enjoy the sass mouth with which I was born. And so it's a really, really nice and transformative thing to be able to give to others. And I can see that in you. What do you think makes an exceptional teacher? What have you learned from your exceptional teachers?
I think that, to go back to Jessica, one of the things I was saying about Jessica's why, when I met her, she was one of the first spiritual and personal development teachers who I met who actually cared. It didn't feel like she was doing it for the glitz and the glamour and the show of it all. And it wasn't about who I did a small retreat with her, and it wasn't about who in this group can I pull out their biggest trauma so I can do a show-stopping, routine with them. And it was just about, I want to connect with you and care about you. And I want to be a real person. This isn't about me being a teacher up here on the stage. It's about how can I hear you and see you? And it was just such a wonderful gift to receive, to be seen and to be, in sisterhood with someone and know that is available, because I had been exposed to a lot of my heroes and been a wee bit disappointed. I got to see their shadow. I got to see their ugly side come out. And while that's important, and of course, Jessica and myself and you, we all have our shadow. We all have a side that's going to come out at some place. But I just felt that she was more honest about it. And that was such a gift. And I don't even remember what the question was at this point, because
to learn, what care looks like as a teacher was the question. And you're right. They demonstrate through generosity, through authentic connection, but also through being super cool about showing you what they really are.
Right.
I don't mind telling you, I've had absolutely no problem. When my mom, for example, was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma, sobbing in front of a client.
Yes.
I am a human being. These things affect you, even if you're Esther Hicks.
Yes.
So it's a really important thing to just show that. But also, for me, it's about the genuine generosity. The teachers who have, and I shared this with you, basically given me a copy-paste fucking template of whatever the hell works for the majority of their clients when I'm paying you a fortune for coaching, really, really knocks me off my socks every single time, because that's when you say, don't meet your heroes. This is where you really want the person who takes the time to show you and to demonstrate mastery.
Yes.
Not just because you're paying, but because they're a human being who genuinely cares and wants to work with you shoulder to shoulder.
And who's, I think another big thing is who's brave enough to turn people away and say, I'm not for you.
Yeah.
And that has been one of the most empowering and peaceful things that I've learned to do as a coach, is realize I'm not just here to run a webinar and sign people up. And every time I've tried that tried and true strategy, it's failed. People come to me in miraculous ways. And I also know when it's time to say, hey, I need to refer you to someone else because I can't help you the way that you need to be helped. And I think just having that integrity is so important. And so many people are in the churn and burn business, or in a little bit, griftery in the coaching business. And that is not who I want to be. And that's also not who I want to work with.
I agree. We're not just here to take your money and, whatever, just deal with it. I love you. And I love that you've said that.
Thank you.
Just yesterday, I was in 2 situations, not one. One in which I was in a consult. She opened by basically saying that she's had a coach, but this coach has done X, Y, and Z incorrectly. And, she would appreciate working with someone with a very leisurely pace.
Yes.
And I said, I think you've come to the wrong place. I don't know how you found me, but if you didn't want intensity.
She's a Virgo. That's not happening.
Yeah, this was not going to be, it's a method. The second thing that is really interesting is when people are not showing up and not doing the work, I am very pleased to have the honor of having been selected by you, but this is not going to work for me. This is a symbiotic process, and you have to be as invested as I am.
Yes.
I truly, truly appreciate that also, because I have the spine of a gummy worm, Amanda, and it was really hard for me for years to, not because of the money, to literally just say, I don't want to work with you. I'm sorry. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And now I've really developed, again, that clear as kind stance, a different level spine.
Yeah.
And am able to say no. By the way, I hope for the listener that this is a big takeaway. A really great teacher will also have the wherewithal to tell you, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
And have standards for you too.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been, so fortunate to be around so many amazing teachers who exemplify that. And of course, I've invested with people who had a shiny penny that was this process in the system and tried and true things that will work. And I've left those things feeling disappointed. I think maybe in your conversation with Danielle Laporte, you were talking about, how you should and get to choose people who resonate with you. You don't have to choose a coach just because they have a tried and true process that's worked for everyone, or because everyone's worked with them. That doesn't mean it's for you. And I really like nuance, and I am a nuanced person. And so I want something that has a little bit of heart and soul. It's not just a check the box thing, because look how well checking the boxes worked out for me and you before. Not so great.
No more doing that. Discernment is the word that came up so many times with Danielle Laporte. And it's a really, really good word for everybody out there. You've built a very thriving message around something that I think many people didn't know they needed, but hopefully have really perked up in this conversation and gone, I feel like maybe I should check this out. What has given you the courage to stay on this mission?
Being in the sobriety space was pretty gnarly for, there were some women who paved the path that took a lot of heat, especially going away from the AA world or doing some more modern and new age approaches to sobriety. And I think it's not even the courage, it is, I have a responsibility, because I learned something that I had to learn for myself. I had to give myself a permission slip because there was no one else to give it to me. I know that I have a mission and a purpose to give that permission slip out to as many women who want to receive it. It's not my job to convince anyone or persuade anyone they need to quit drinking alcohol. But if you are someone who senses deeply that your relationship with alcohol is keeping you from your truest potential, it's keeping you from the livelihood, the expansion, the manifestation, the relationship, the physical health, the spiritual connection, whatever it is that you want and deeply desire, if you sense that alcohol is blocking you, number one, you're definitely right. And two, you owe it to yourself to explore it, but it's not easy. And so I am here to be a help and a guide and support that I didn't have. And that's what just gives me the courage every day, is this sense of empowering responsibility, though. It feels very important to me because I know how impactful it's been for me. And I've watched my clients just step into some really miraculous lives. And I want other people to have that. It's also like, I deeply desire other people to feel that magic that I feel. And it would be so selfish of me to turn away and say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. That's not, who cares?
You're reminding me a little bit of what's happened to me since I became rich.
Oh, yeah? Say more.
Because you feel freedom.
Yeah.
And when you feel freedom, I think the weirdest thing ever is to just be like, all right, I'm okay now. By the way, for me, rich is not worrying about your phone bill anymore and not worrying about the little moments anymore. That's it. At the second you figure something out, you just want to turn around and tell everybody about it.
Shout it from the rooftops.
To literally help with that suffering as much as you possibly can. I just love that you're doing this for what sounds to me like all the right reasons. You've got an incredible platform.
Thank you.
You have an incredible podcast. What's next for you? What are you excited about in 2026?
Ooh, well, we have another book brewing. It's been brewing since I sent the last one off. I knew there was an entire other book that I'd put in the, off to the side. And so I just started my process this last week of really being earnest about putting that into proposal format and doing all the things to get it to people. And I'm so excited. It's like my passion to write, and I am just lit up at the prospect of doing it again.
I smell another manifestation coming.
Yes.
Well, I hope you'll come back and talk to us about it when the book is out there.
Absolutely. I'd be delighted.
Thank you for the depth. This has been a really special conversation. I really, really appreciate the chance to meet you, Amanda.
Thank you so much. The same to you, Keren. And I thank you so much for the work that you do and the honesty and integrity by which you share it.
Thank you. And thank you especially for the chance to badmouth Carrie Bradshaw.
Anytime.
To the listener, I I truly hope you loved and appreciated this conversation as well. If you really, really liked it, please check out our channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and on Apple. And if you feel like it, give us a positive review. Most importantly, though, what I want you to do is share this episode, if it resonated with you, for a friend, with someone who might truly appreciate it and enjoy the chance to meet Amanda. I thank you so much for joining us on Coaching Masters on the Coach Podcast. We'll see you next time.